Well, hey there, it's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol. That's wavetables.lol, home of KRC Mathwaves, the world's largest collection of wavetables, single-cycle waveforms, and even some samples for all sorts of modern synthesizers, but also, that's where you'll find, oh thanks Creative Cloud, just send me a notification right now about a beta while I'm trying to record. Anyway, wavetables.lol is also the home of Liminal Space, my first plugin, and I call it a haunted digital reverb. It does all sorts of strange and wonderful things. And it's been out for a little while now, so just playing through some presets here. It's been out for a while, but it was headless before. It didn't have a GUI, a graphical user interface. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. You know, I do these long, talky videos, long, talky synthesizer content, and I'm just going to try to keep this one short, because what I just wanted to let you know is that Liminal Space, over here, now has a GUI. This plugin is only Windows right now, unfortunately. I do not have a Mac. I'm not a Mac guy. And so I can't compile it for Mac just yet. I'm going to do some more work on it, and then I will get a friend, or maybe I'll just borrow a Mac to work on getting it running on Macintosh. But the other thing that's new about it is it's available in a VST3 version. So if your host supports VST3 or the CLAP Clever Audio plugin format, you can run Liminal Space on Windows. Got fat fingers this afternoon. And, you know, it's a pretty good interface right now. There's still some to-dos. Boy, why can't I grab that? There we go. It's scalable, and it works, you know, on quad def screens like I have. I run in, whatever it is, 2190p. And so organizationally, it's really the same as using it headless. You can just play with it down here if you want to, but it does have an interface now. You know, there's just, it's pretty simple. There's two types of controls. There's some combo boxes, like for presets, or changing the reverb algorithm itself. And there are more than 2,000 reverb algorithms across different types and categories, some of which, like Bank A, that I call Lex1, Lexi. So Bank A, Lex1, are very smooth reverbs with kind of reasonable delay line times in them, and there's a whole bunch of them. Nominally, the ones with lower numbers are quote-unquote better. All these algorithms all of these algorithms were generated with kind of a genetic algorithm approach, where we start with kind of randomized delay lines and then evolve them toward their desired properties. So some of them, the delay line values are very well distributed across the array of potential values. And so they have really nice smooth sounds like this. But then there's more effecty ones, like Lex2. These have more of a bloom to them, and these might remind you of things like old Alesis hardware reverbs. There are then some very long ones, like there's 3 sets of cathedral type ones. And really the only difference between like the cathedral and plate and Lex algorithms is just the maximum delay time and like the shortest delay time. You see the cathedral ones come in pretty slow. So they have a very long rise time. It's almost like they have pre-delay built into them. But you can adjust that. So another thing that having a GUI gives you is we can do new things that you couldn't do if you just have, you know, a headless plugin that doesn't have controls. Like there's no way here really to load and save presets that didn't come with the reverb, but you can do that now. So down at the bottom of the GUI, you will find a utility interface, and so you could save a preset, you can load them back in, and then as I mentioned, the whole GUI is scalable. It looks a little funky on lower resolution screens, I'm gonna say. It's certainly serviceable, but it probably needs a little bit more work there. I'm, again, in like a quad def kind of mode. You may want to adjust the scale a bit. And so I've got these buttons here to like, we can make our scale a little tiny, or we can make it big, or we can go back to the default. And you can do the same with the text. So you can, if you think, like, see, I'm old. And so, you know, if you're like me, you're like, I can't even see these. I have astigmatism and stuff. So, you know, but the text is probably a little bit like bigger than maybe you would like. So, you know, you can fiddle around with that. And then just because I'm still kind of working on this part of the interface and like what the true default should be, and, you know, kind of how the vertical and horizontal scaling actually works. I've got a little readout here that tells you how big the window is and what your current scale factors are. But anyway, that's beside the point. The other thing you can do with this is, you know, if you want more resolution on the sliders, right, you can drag it wider. And if you want to see more of the interface at once, you can drag down, and that won't scale, but it just reveals more of the interface. So for example, you know, if you wanted to, let's go to cassette. This is like a nice warbly kind of de-resed sort of sound. I'm going to make this a little more wet so we can hear it, huh? Maybe turn this level up a little bit more. So what we're doing here in this patch is we've got our D-Res set here at like 36%. So D-Res is essentially, it's a bit crushing effect. This is in the original kCosmos that Chris from Air Windows designed. See, as I move it, you can hear a pitch sweep kind of effect that happens. And you know, one of the key features of this reverb is that we can modulate D-Res internally with a wavetable LFO. And so you see, I've got this very complex kind of shape here. This is a binary multi-ring wavetable from KRC Mathwaves. And in addition to letting it modulate D-Res, let's turn the depth way up on this. You can hear that. You know, that's a lot. That's more than you would usually want, right? The useful range is down in here, kind of 6% and below, but you can get special effects if you move this up. So in addition to being able to change the rate and the depth, there's a modulation LFO. And the modulation LFO can target all sorts of different things. Like right now, it's targeting the rate parameter here, so that changes slightly based on this very complex curve from one of my Bezier wavetables. But you can target different things. Like we can target the wavetable frame in the D-Res LFO. And now you'll see that animate. The interface here, I built using a library called Nuklear, which is an immediate mode GUI. if you're interested in these kind of super technical topics, let's see, where is it? Here it is. In GitHub, it's immediate mode UI Nuklear. And Nuklear is what's called an immediate mode GUI. So it's basically stateless. It just takes the values from the DSP and like renders them. And it's currently doing that in this version about 30 times a second. I could probably up that refresh rate a little bit. And it's also GPU accelerated. So that's pretty cool. So it doesn't really take any extra juice. Like if we were to get, let's see, I got to make it smaller for a second. If we were to get our CPU indicator up here, can you tell I'm sort of freestyling today, friends? You can see that having the interface open like doesn't really change CPU at all. And what we're listening to is Korg Multipoly, which is it's pretty resource intensive plugin itself. But anyway, blah 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 blah. It was kind of interesting I hadn't worked with Nuklear before. I thought it was a good choice for this plugin because I just wanted the interface to be simple. I wanted it to be scalable. I wanted it to be GPU accelerated. And it does all those things, and it looks pretty good. I'm probably going to customize this a little bit more. There's a lot of sections. There's more than 50 parameters for this reverb. Of course, I've made it easier on you because there are some presets that get you to some of the interesting effects it can do. Like this is a very chorusy kind of reverb, and the chorus is coming from pitch shifting the individual delay lines. Oh boy, fat fingers, cross. And you can hear that chorusing sound as the reverb continues to evolve. They're also, taking advantage of the fact that we have different reverb algorithms, some of which are more delay-like, so they're not completely smooth. Like in the Lex 1 bank, there's a couple of sets called Ultra, and these aren't necessarily ultra long, but I let the algorithm use much larger spans of delay lines. And so a lot of these will bloom in interesting ways. Like listen to this one. It kind of blooms in twice. And you can change a lot of stuff. The reverb length is basically influenced by two factors: the specific algorithm that you select, and then the regen parameter. And so regeneration goes from 0. Like we're basically just playing the delays once. In essence, it's a little bit more than that. The default is like 50%. And so you'll hear a pretty long reverb, but it can also go infinite. So if the settings are at 100 and we don't have any other filtering on, I guess we should pick one that doesn't have filtering on. Let's go to infinite. You'll get this ambient space reverb that just goes on forever. And you can hear that the sound darkens over time, and you can change that here. There's a filter. So in the earlier reflections section, there's a filter, and this is from kCosmos. If it's at 100%, there'll be no filtering, and so you'll hear much higher tones. And you can probably see that in the spectrum over here. So you see now we've got higher frequencies hanging around a lot longer. But this will just go forever. And there you go. Like that's okay. So Liminal Space now has an interface. Another thing we can do is we've got in two sections in the delay modulation and diffusion section, there's a clear delays button. So if you just want to stop this crazy thing, you can clear it right out. This is also useful in another place, and see my original video about the headless version of Liminal Space for a very deep dive on all of the parameters. But there's a dangerous parameter down in the pitch shift section that can easily go into very insane feedback. I'm going to pick this preset called Like Our Owl because it sounds really nice, and we can also illustrate what I was talking about. Nice chorusy delay, right, on the pitch shifting part. So there's this one parameter called FB trim. There also, when you buy this, by the way, it's $5. So like if you're on Windows and you have a CLAP or VST3 host, like you might be interested in this because it's really fun. There's a lot to explore, and you can really customize it to your own taste. Anyway, there's this very dangerous parameter that I talked about in my first video called FB trim. So by default, this reverb is kind of perfectly tuned to go infinite when regen is at 100%. But when you've got the pitch shift on, when you're modulating the delay lines with this pitch shift wavetable, which, you know, there's all sorts of different wavetables. This is like the most useful one really for the pitch shift is the sine to triangle. So it's a sine down here, it's a triangle up here, and then it morphs between those two values, just in the same way that like Mathwave or phase plant or serum would with the time linear wavetable morph. If you're doing this and you have certain settings, the reverb will die out because of phase cancellation, right? We're changing the phases of all these different frequencies. There's 20 different delay lines that are in the sustain part of the reverb. And so when you do this pitch shift modulation, it'll no longer go infinite. And so to make it go longer, there's this feedback trim, which is a multiplier for the recirculation of the delay lines. And so now we're still hearing the pitch shifting, but it's ringing out longer. And we can very carefully move this up to get something that's closer to our infinite reverb, but also has the pitch shifting in it. The problem is you can't overdo it. Let's see if we can make it start to feed back. Go. So that's very close to like an infinite sustain, wouldn't you say? But if we take this way up, it might start to run away from us. Yeah. So see, it's just like, it's growing and growing and growing. And see, there's a resonant frequency that's coming in here. Wow, that's going to get nasty fast. So we've got a clear delays button. Boop, boop, boop. We can just clear out those delay lines. So if you ever hear that start to happen, if you ever hear that start to happen when you're playing with the pitch shift section, and really, there's not a lot of reason to change the FB trim. Just, you got to know what you're doing. But anyway, if you're messing with FB trim and things start to get out of control, you've got a clear delays button that'll save your ears before you scare the bejesus out of yourself. And then you can move FB trim back down. Okay, that's about all I wanted to talk about. Liminal Space, haunted digital reverb, more than 2,000 algorithms, 22 presets to get you started, about 24 wavetables for the wavetable LFOs that are taken from the KRC Mathwaves collection. A lot of fun things you could do with this. I will do a deeper dive into some more liminal space programming techniques and weird effects that you can do in a future video. But I just wanted to let you know that it's now available for VST3 and for CLAP. It's very easy to install. It does not have an installer, but you just unzip it, you drop it into your CLAP directory or your VST3 directory, depending on the version that you want to use. And bingo, bango, boom, you're ready. It can go in any folder that your host scans. Obviously, this works in Bitwig. The CLAP version also works in Reaper. I saw some weird stuff with the VST3 version in Reaper. I'm not a Reaper user, but I did install it just to check it out. And the CLAP version, which would be the preferred version to use, The CLAP version works perfectly. The VST3 version, it didn't look to me like it rendered its interface quite right. Your mileage may vary, but if your host is a CLAP host, like Bitwig, like Reaper, Studio One, I think, also does CLAP, then there's no reason to use the VST3 version. You would use the CLAP version. The VST3 version also works in things like Vegas, which is the video editing platform that I use, tested there and works. Interestingly, Vegas doesn't support headless plugins. So actually, Liminal Space did not work in Vegas until I added the GUI. Let's see, what else? Works in Unify. You know, John Skippy Lemcool's really cool kind of super synth environment and plugin host. So the VST3 version works there. I assume that Unify 2 will support CLAP. Anyway, it's $5 at www.wavetables.lol. Oh, also, I'm doing a summer sale on KRC Mathwaves. So if you want 160,000 plus wavetables made with all sorts of mathematical techniques, go to wavetables.lol and get that. Use discount code SUMMER25 to get it for half off. So it's usually $29. It's $14.50 with code SUMMER25, or follow the link in the description. There's always links in the description. And hey, it's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol signing off. Like and subscribe for more talky synthesizer content, and I will talk to you later.
Do you like our owl? It's artificial.